Welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly, and my co-host for today's show is Janet Corsi, and our guests are James Logsdon and Mary Ann Unger, and the topic of the show is character development. And Jan, I'm going to let you introduce our first guest.
It'd be my pleasure. Our first guest is James Logsdon. James grew up in western Washington State on a small farm on the Columbia River. Besides attending school, he began working in construction at age 13. With this early hands-on career, James developed a solid work ethic and learned the value of the dollar. In high school, James joined the Navy Reserves. In 1966, after graduating from college, the Navy called James to active duty and immediately assigned him to the USS Alfred A. Cunningham, DD 752, a destroyer stationed in Long Beach, California. He served 2 combat tours in duty during the Vietnam era, and because of his Navy training and experience, the Central Intelligence Agency hired James in 1969. After a year of specialized training, James began an exciting and rewarding career that extended throughout Asia. He retired from the company in 1994, then moved to the Republic of the Philippines. It was there that he met the love of his life. Today, James resides in Las Vegas, Nevada, with his beautiful wife, Sonia. In addition, I would like to note, as a previous employee of the Central Intelligence Agency, every word James writes for publication must be approved by the Publication Review Board. This restriction limits content concerning dates, location, personnel, and operation. Wow. What else can you tell us about this, James?
Well, my latest book, The Soul, No Soul Unturned, is a follow-up to my bestseller, The Soul of Black Mountain, Nevada.
Okay.
As you mentioned, I worked with the CIA undercover and mostly overseas in Asia. And when I retired, like you say, in 1994, moved to the Philippines in 2007. And in 2007, I should say that Sonia and I moved to the United States. So I'd been gone for so long out of the United States that it was almost like moving to a foreign country.
Yes.
I bought a home in Henderson, Nevada with Black Mountain at my doorstep. My first trip as a retiree and a new person into the United States was to explore the mountain. And deep in one of these valleys, I found an object that seemed to be possessed in a strange place I called the Hideaway.
Now, is this real or?
This is absolutely real.
Okay.
Subsequently, I learned that many years ago, decades, a devil worship group practiced on Black Mountain, and I believed I stumbled onto their church and their idol. The Soul of Black Mountain, Nevada takes the reader on a hair-raising trip into the paranormal.
That's exciting to me.
Now, since I published that book, a strange carved wooden doll has mysteriously appeared near the Hideaway. And I call it the Watchman, and the Watchman has an important part in my new book, The Soul, No Soul Unturned. Now, this new book carries the adventure of my first book, The Soul of Black Mountain. The No Soul Unturned carries the adventure to the next level. We humans are always and constantly under pressure to choose between good and evil. And if you found yourself with a key to save mankind, would you stand up, face an impossible foe, or try to outrun your fate? And that's what that book is about.
Okay. What inspired you? Well, obviously we know what inspired you to write that book. You're
Personal
meandering
experience.
around up in the mountains.
Personal experience on a
Right.
mountain inspired me to write that book.
But what about paranormal? Did you believe in paranormal before?
I've always been sensitive to that sort of thing, and this emphasized that ability.
About how big is that, the wooden carving?
It's a ball made out of tightly wound copper. It's about the size of a soccer ball and extremely heavy.
Ah.
And when I picked it up, the hair on the back of my neck and my arms and down my back started moving from side to side almost as if it was magnetized. One place to another to another. And I felt a great sorrow. And as I tried to take this thing down the mountain, I was attacked. And I know it sounds strange, but I felt like there were things crawling on my back, on my head. And I felt a great sorrow, as if I broke into tears. Now, I'm not really a crying kind of guy.
No.
And I said, I can't take this thing home. I was going to put it underneath the olive tree in my front yard. And I said, no, I can't do that. So I set it down, thinking these things would stay there and leave me alone. Well, they didn't. They followed me, and they were crawling. And, I mean, it was terrible.
So what happened to the wire thing, though?
The wire, I left that ball of wire alongside the trail. And these things continued to harass me as I was going down the trail. And I started running. And it was such intense that I was praying to Jesus Christ to take these things away from me. And I thought, what am I going to do? I can't take them home, but what should I do? And I turned this an overhang in the side of the cliff, and they stopped. And I fell down right on my knees right then and gave thanks to Jesus Christ for helping me out. I went home and told all my friends about it, and they said, well, you can't leave that thing there. You got to take it back. And I said, well, I'm never going on that mountain again. But after a week, I thought, well, I got to take it back. And sure enough, I went back up there, and when I came to that overhang, they were waiting. Only this time, they didn't attack me. They weren't aggressive, and it was a different bunch.
Now, did you see these things or just feel them?
I couldn't see them, but I could feel them.
Okay.
It was very intense. This group was happy, and they were happy to see me. I know I did not see them, but I could feel their joy. And when they followed behind me, they didn't get on me, they didn't go in front of me. They followed behind me, and when I walked up the trail, I forgot exactly where I laid the ball, but when I walked by it, they stopped. And so I thought, and sure enough, there was the ball. I picked it up, took it back to the hideaway, rolled it into the exact spot where I found it, and just like that, they were gone.
Maybe it was the same group, and they were happy that you were coming back.
I think it was a different group.
Ah.
I mean, from the same family, but so I thought, well, where do these things come from? And the research I've done, I learned that centuries ago that the people who lived in what is now Mexico used to come up to this area and kidnap Indians and take them back and to be their slaves. And so the research that I did, also from nuclear testing that they've done in Nevada and other unexplained murders and things that have happened in the area, I've created a story about what these spirits were.
So this is where the story came from.
Yes, that's where
this sounds so exciting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wow. Very interesting. So have you been back since you placed the object back where it was?
Yes, I have. And I have a very mysterious object has appeared. I don't know that you can see that or not, but...
Well, let's just hold it up.
This, since I published this book, The Soul of Black Mountain, Nevada, mysteriously, this carved image appeared in the hideaway shortly thereafter, which tells me that whatever this place is that I stumbled into, somebody read the book and decided to put this up there. I call this guy the Watchman, and he's very prevalent in my new book.
It looks a lot like some of the things you would see on Easter Island or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. I did a presentation, and I put up Easter Island statues, and that's what everybody said, too. This thing looks like something from Easter Island.
Now, is this picture on your book or in your book?
Yes, it's on my new book, No Soul Unturned.
Oh, marvelous.
You know what I find interesting about this is that if there is a connection there, that would make you think that this is a worldwide connection.
Well, that's exactly what goes on to that's the cover of my new book there,
okay.
Which will be coming out in hopefully in time for our book launch.
Yeah.
in April.
Okay, great. That'll be great.
Marvelous.
Yeah. So I'm just going to interject there since you just said that. We are having a book launching, the second annual Aspects of Writing book launching and picnic in Las Vegas at 9708 Gillespie Street, April 27th, which is a Saturday from 10 until 4. Thank you for bringing that up.
Oh, wow.
My chance to plug.
Yes.
That is really interesting. Now, I'm kind of into all that kind of stuff.
Great.
So
I
that's
think
really
we-
interesting.
All are.
Where can we find your books?
Well, we're having, of course, you can find them on Amazon and their Kindle, and on my website, prevailingwind.com. And also, we're having a book launch up in Anthem here in Henderson on April 20th. I'll be there to sign books.
Oh, cool.
And a week later, I'll be signing, hopefully, at
What time is your book launch?
it's at 9. I believe in 9 in the morning until 1 o'clock in
Okay.
the afternoon.
Good.
All right. All right. Well, our next guest is Mary Ann Unger, a.k.a. M.A.R. Unger. That's what you write under. And Mary Ann finds inspiration for her mysteries in the local Las Vegas Valley. It was a radio newscast that provided the aha moment that gave rise to the Maddie James Mystery Series. Originally from New Jersey, she studied at the University of Miami and can't remember a time when she wasn't writing. Her interests include genealogy, history, photography, and art. She is also an avid researcher, especially with regard to forensics and police procedures used in her novels. Mary Ann is a member of the Anthem Authors Writers Group here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I believe you are as well, James.
Yes, we're both past presidents, as a matter of
Oh,
fact.
wow.
Wow.
Okay. All right. So, Mary Ann, please tell us a little bit about your family and how you ended up in Las Vegas.
Okay, I'm from New Jersey, as you said, and I grew up in a village. It was a village that surrounded a steel mill company. If you're on the east coast of the United States, you know about the Brooklyn Bridge and the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. If you're on the west coast, you know about the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge.
Mhm.
Well, the Roebling Steel Company provided the cable for all of them, and that's the town that I lived in.
Wow.
My father was an engineer there, and my mother had been a legal secretary. She kind of opened my eyes to what was really happening in New Jersey, soprano land known to everyone
Yes.
else.
Yes.
She said that before an election, in the safe in her boss's office, and one of them went on to be a state senator, believe it or not, there used to be a lot of cash. Then people would come in and take out the cash and empty it. They were buying votes on the street, but she didn't realize it till much later.
Uh-huh.
So the corruption you hear about New Jersey is true. I hated New Jersey's weather, and I came west to escape it. And unfortunately, we did have about an inch of snow here in the Las Vegas Valley, and there's nothing sadder than snow on a palm tree.
Yeah, right. Right.
But it was kind of beautiful, though.
Oh, yes, it was. When I first got here, I was riding on the Interstate 15, and I heard the aha moment, the broadcast, where human remains had been uncovered at a construction site, and the people just threw them out with the trash. And I thought, ooh, in New Jersey, we put people in trash bags and throw them out to the landfill. Here, they
Yeah.
just bury them or throw them away. So I said, I should write about that. I need somebody to put a face on these remains, and that would be a forensic facial reconstruction artist.
Uh-huh.
Then I said, damn, I need to know what that job is, what they do. So that was the
Right.
beginning of my journey into.
And you actually learned to
managing.
do that.
Oh yes, I studied all the textbooks. I had hands-on training from a mentor, and I had a mentor for the 3D that they now use in certain parts of the world. So it was very interesting.
And how many books have you written now?
I've written 7. The 7th one has just become available. It's called Relentless. It's not in the Maddie James series. It takes place mostly between Miami and Key West on a 95-foot yacht.
Wow. Wow. Okay.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
All right. And where can we find your work?
Amazon, Kindle. I will not be at the April 20th book signing, but I'll be at the book signing on the 27th. And you can check out www.amazon.com M-A-R, Unger.com for my website.
All right. Well, the topic of the show today is character development. And the reason this show came about is because Marianne was in my office one day and we were having a heated debate about how it really works. And one of the things I've learned over the years, and especially watching interviews of other authors, famous authors, is that they have a different technique. There are some like Dan Brown who believe that you develop the characters, they don't develop themselves, and you steer the characters, they don't steer themselves. That's where our debate came in, because I know you do that as well, whereas I allow my characters to lead me down a path.
Yeah.
So we all write differently, and we're going to talk about how that works. So I'm going to start off here with the following is about famous writers on character development from a published blog dated January 20th, 2014 by Debbie Vance. Joyce Carol Oates from The Art of Fiction, number 72, she said, but in general, the writing writes itself. I mean, a character determines his or her voice, and I must follow along. And that leads us right down the path where Marianne and I were.
Oh, yes. We had our swords out that
I
day.
told Marianne that I was determined to find something online where somebody agreed with me.
Well, Stephen King does too, but I don't agree with Stephen King.
Yeah. But I'm just going to say from my vantage point, I understand a little bit of what we were talking about that day, in the sense that my first novel was based on a dream. The entire book was based on a 3-character dream. And then from there, it developed. And what I'm talking about when I say that the characters help lead the path is, I actually shared this with you, Marianne. I had a character in there who was not married, and then there was a scene in that book to where it didn't make sense that the one character was going to Savannah, Georgia to propose to his fiancée. But he was being inducted to the Secret Service, and his training partner was invited to go along with them. And it didn't make sense that this guy would be single, because why would you have this person
Take
tag
a single
along when
guy.
you're going
Yeah.
to propose to your future wife?
Right.
So I married him off, which means I had to go back to the beginning of the book to where he now had a wife. And later on, this character becomes a main character in the second book, which isn't out yet. But anyway, the thing is that there are instances where a character can lead you, because to me, that's what happened. These characters become real in my mind in a way to where I'm actually talking about them sometimes to someone. When I was out there pitching the book, I would tell this story and they go, how did you know these people? Well, I didn't. They're just characters I created. So that's what I mean by a character can lead you and change the story a little bit even.
I'm with you, James.
Oh, good.
I do that, but sometimes they get off out there, and I have to rein them back in.
Yeah.
But yes, the story goes along, and the character develops itself.
Yeah.
That's what I find.
And I know Marianne's going to say
No,
something.
I'm not going to agree with that. You are the characters. When you create a character, you create a backstory for them. I hope you do, at least, so you know where they're coming from. You know their likes. You know their dislikes. If you're writing thrillers and mysteries like me, I can't start a story without knowing how it ends. And with a thriller, you have to work up to the climax and know how it ends. If you let a character go off on a tangent that is not related to the book or to the main story, you're kind of cheating the reader, I think.
Well, that's when you have to rein them back in.
Yeah, that's why you're in charge of
Well,
the character.
I understand what she's saying a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we do create these characters. Like I said, Molly didn't exist in my book. It was because of what happened with the series of events going to Savannah that she was created. There was no backstory on her when I created her because I just needed to marry the one character off. However, obviously, I did create a backstory. I had to give a little bit about her background, where she was in school. She was still in college. So I understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. We still develop that. But at the same time, I think it's a give and take. The characters are leading you down a path. And then at one point you step in and you create that character and develop it a little bit more. So I think it's both.
And I think the beauty of this is, with all the work that Marianne does and James here, they go to the trouble of learning how everything actually works in real life before they put pen to it.
Oh yeah, you have to do research on what you're
Right.
talking about, or
Yeah.
it doesn't ring true.
Okay, but I'm going to stop you on that one too.
All right.
All right.
Of course
And the
he is.
reason, no, I'm going to tell you why. Mine was based on a dream. I was never in the military. I have no idea about the Secret Service, the CIA, or any of that. So I was just writing based on this dream. When the book came out, or just before it came out, I had a retired Air Force colonel who read this book because I wanted to know, because there's so much in there about the Secret Service, the CIA, being able to take a flight from one Air Force base to another, what a four-star general could really do. And when he read this, he was amazed. He goes, there are some things in there you wrote, I don't even know if it's possible, but more than likely it is, because when you're that high up in rank, you can pretty much demand anything you need. And so when it comes to, securing a flight, so he said he was amazed at how well. Now, I don't know if that's because we learn from osmosis, from seeing and hearing things and watching the news and watching other television shows or movies. Maybe that's where this came from. But he was amazed at how accurate it was, and I did no research on that.
I found that I've had people come to me and that have bragged about being in the military, and I can, within one or two questions, I can tell them that they're either telling the truth or lying with very simple little questions. So you must have been very lucky, or you did some research to know what you were talking about.
I think James is very intuitive, and that's how he managed to get through this.
I'd like to say on the character that you created, that was a logical decision. You knew that there was a hole in the story and you had to go back. I've done that. I'd say, I need another character. I have too few characters. So I'd figure out where to put the character, bring him in, and then I make the conscious decision of what type of role he's going to play. Is he going to be a secondary character? Am I going to move him up? Am I going to carry him through the story? Then, based on his personality, I know how he's going to react with other characters, how they're going to react to him. Are they going to off him? Is he going to off somebody else? That sort of thing in my mysteries. But you make a conscious decision that, hey, I got to create somebody new. Then, depending on the type of story you tell, you give the character a role, and you would let the character direct you. Yes. And I would rein it in. Each of us is different. We have a different way of approaching the books, and I think it all works.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
But they definitely do have their own. My characters come to life, and I really inject myself into that character. And it sounds really strange, and I've talked about it on the air before. There was one scene in that same book where this one villain, he was going to murder someone. And he knew when he went to question this person that he was never going to leave that house with her alive.
Right.
But instead of just leaving, and he wanted to play a cat and mouse game because that's his character. I thought, what would he do? What would he really be like? So you immerse yourself into what this character would really be like. And admittedly, I cried for 2 days after I wrote this scene.
'Cause
I
he
thought,
was
I
evil.
cannot put this in the book because people are going to look at me that know me and say, you're weird. Where did this come from? Because he toyed with her and made her think that he was going to rape her, but he wasn't. He just wanted to toy with her. And the entire time, through this whole escapade of making her disrobe, going to the bathroom, getting in the shower, was just a facade. His intention was to kill her. It was never to do anything other than just kill her.
Yeah.
You're going to say something, James?
Well, yes, I can tell. Maybe you developing your characters. I developed mine, and to put the extra little thing of belief into it, I have to really dig down and say, did I do that, or can I do that, and how would I feel, and how has a person felt when they actually killed somebody? If you're going to do that, what goes through their mind when they pull the trigger or put the knife in or whatever they do to do that, and to understand how that feels and put it into the book or your pages is what I find the key to developing my characters.
Yeah, I agree that you give a character their own voice. They have to sound unique, whether it's a type of verbal comment that they always make, or something that makes them different from the other person. But you also have to get inside their head, maybe not your head, but their head, to see how they would react in a certain situation. I just finished a book by a very mild-mannered person, and it was really dark, and if I thought that was her, I would never visit her again. But then she's the writer, she's a creative person. It's not her, it's the characters.
That's what I'm talking about by
Yes.
the character can lead you. Because if you don't, when you develop that character, you have to develop it in a way that they become almost real in your mind
Oh, yeah.
in order to follow where they want to go next. Like, I know we have a beginning, a middle, and an end often. Obviously, I did because I dreamed the whole thing. But we have to fill in somewhere. And it's those characters that are going to take you on that journey and fill in for you. You're right in that they still have to maintain, excitement, or whatever emotions you're trying to invoke in the whole thing. But at the same time, you have to give them the freedom to lead you. I know you don't quite agree with that.
No,
but,
I think we're using different terms, but we're saying basically the same thing.
Okay,
With James reining them in when they need to be reined in.
we've already done the show.
Good night, everybody.
Good
Thanks
night.
for listening.
Yeah. All right. So, Marianne, I'm gonna let you take the next one.
Okay, and because you like me so much, you gave me names I can't pronounce. Okay, Simone de Beauvoir from the Art of Fiction, number 35. She says, I don't consider names very important. I choose the name Xavier in She Came to Stay because I had met only one person who had that name. Then I look for names. I use telephone directory or try to remember the names of former pupils.
Mhm.
How do you get the names for your characters? I'm gonna ask Marianne first.
Okay, sometimes they just pop out, but my problem is sometimes I have characters with the same first letter of their name, and that gets confusing after a while. So if I have a Joe and a Janice, I'll change one of the names.
Okay.
I go for sound and whether it sounds like the type of person I want. If it's someone with a Russian name, I want the 3 Russian names, whether they use them all. What I want to know what the nickname is for that type of person, so I can use it. It's kind of fun to do that.
I think
Yeah.
so too. James, how do you get your names?
Usually I get my names from people that I run into.
Okay.
And also, when I get stuck, like for a barber, I might name him Hair. Or
Clever.
for a sergeant, he might be Sergeant Stripe. Or keep it simple. And but usually it comes down to people that I've run into.
Okay. Jan?
Well, mine was real easy. I stole it from past relatives that have been dead and gone for over 100 years. I figured they couldn't come back and do much about it if I took their names. So that's where I got all my names from.
It's interesting because the one story I think I was sharing with you before we went on the air, I actually, I used to work in the food industry, and I worked a banquet, and I saved the name tags from that banquet, and then I would combine names. I didn't necessarily use that exact name, but I would combine names. I would go home, and then someone suggested one of the main characters, and I just loved the name Zace. When he said that for the main character, I thought that fits perfectly. So that was a suggestion. And then when it came to the children's story, The Purple Caterpillar, which Jan's daughter-in-law did the illustrations for, every one of those characters came from someone I worked with.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize that until just now, but they all were from people that I worked with.
Yeah.
So, there's a variety of ways of going out there. And a lot of times people will get stumped with, where do I get a name for this character? And I like what she said, too. Just get it. Well, we don't have a lot of telephone directories anymore, but you can go online.
Right.
I get a telephone directory delivered to my door, and for what, I don't know, but it's about 4 inches thick.
I know, me too. Yeah.
That's crazy.
It sits on the shelf for a while, and then I'm thinking, just put it in the recycle bin.
Right.
And sometimes you have a name of a person that you worked with and you didn't like them, and maybe they were a boss and you make them a janitor. I've done
Yes. Oh, I really like that.
That's fun.
I really
like that,
that,
too.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I am devious.
So when you hear a name in a book and you're a janitor, you know she demoted you there.
Uh-huh.
I had to be very careful of a lot of the characters I developed that I didn't, especially in some of my other books that I wrote about when I was working, that I didn't have their name because they have a way of saying, oh, hey, that was me or that was you. So I have to change the names in my characters that related to my work quite a bit.
Oh
Yeah, and because of your having been in the CIA, you had to be careful with names.
Yeah.
You still have to be careful with
Still,
names.
I cannot.
Feel free to use my name anytime you want.
All right, I will.
All right, James, I'm going to let you take the next one.
John Steinbeck from The Art of Fiction, number 45. Sometimes I have a vision of human personality as a kind of fetid jungle full of monsters and demons and little lights. Seems to me a dangerous place to venture, a little like those tunnels in Coney Island where things leap out at screaming. I've been accused so often of writing about abnormal people, which is true.
Yes.
It'd be a great joke on the people in my book if I just left them high and dry waiting for me. They'd bully me and do me what they choose. I have them over a barrel. They can't move until I pick up a pencil. That's true. They're frozen, turned into ice, standing on one foot, and with the same smile they had yesterday when I stopped.
I like that
Yes.
quote.
Yes.
That is so cool because it's true. You know, you're leaving them wherever they are until you pick up that pen and start writing again.
On a contrary note,
Oh
of
no,
course,
here we go.
Toni Morrison wrote that the characters that she writes don't give a darn about her, and why should she let them lead her? She creates them.
Well, that's interesting because that may be why I was actually able to finish some of the book that I wrote, because I didn't want to leave my character hanging. I wanted them to have an ending to that situation at that particular moment. Otherwise, I might have never finished my book.
But it's interesting how you do have feelings for the characters.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I had a character in my first novel that I killed off after chapter 2 or 3, I think. And people now the book was already out, and people were writing me or calling me and saying, "You can't do that. She can't die." I go, "You do understand the book is finished. There is no retracting that." However, in a spiritual note, in the sequel, that character does come back to life. Not as a human. Well, yeah, and it's a human. I won't go into it too much. But anyway,
Spirit.
yeah. So, maybe if there's a character and you love them that much, there's always a way to bring them back.
Yeah, I had a character that I didn't like, and I wanted to kill the person off at the end. And I go to 2 critique groups. One has men in it, and one has.
She's
one
pointing
has,
to James.
One has women, and they have 2 different points of view. And in the end, I did not kill him off, and I'm disappointed that I didn't. It
Yeah.
would have been a much stronger story had I done that.
Ah.
I should have listened to James.
I seem to remember a quote. I think it was by Steven Spielberg. He says, "Develop a character, kill him off." Right? It doesn't matter. Just get rid of him if you think the time is to make the point. I find it hard to kill off somebody I got developed. It's like giving birth and then all of a sudden you're gone.
Well, but there are times when even the nicest, most gentle, caring characters that people fall in love with there's a necessity to bring a point to the story. And that's what happened in this book, because one of the main characters, the story could never have happened had she not died, because it was because of the way she died and the disappearance of her father that sent him on the journey to find out what was this about. So had that not happened,
There'd been no story.
I deliberately built it up to where you loved her, knowing that I was going to disappoint a lot of people, because then you're angry and you want to find out, well, what happened to her? Why did this happen? I didn't want her to die. So it really is an accomplishment to do that. I think, that you really want to involve the reader into the point where they love them so much and then kill them off and then think, oh, man, I don't know. That's just my way of thinking.
Well, my character that I didn't kill off was a reporter, but I made him equally obnoxious at the end, so people really didn't care whether he lived or died.
Okay. All right.
I like to create in each of my books, a life-changing event that somebody might remember.
Mm-hmm.
And in several of my books that I've done that, where the actual was life-changing events for me, and I tried to put it down onto the words as to what it felt like.
Like, for example?
Well, in one of my books called Sweet Lips, I was in a life or death combat with an octopus. And when I killed the octopus in the end, he almost got me, but I prevailed. And I had been hunting this great fish. And this great fish, after I had killed the octopus, came down within a foot of me and looked me straight in the face. I had my spear gun, and I could have killed him right away. But I thought, this fish is trying to tell me something. I had been in just moments ago in a life and death struggle with an octopus that I won, and I'd taken that life. And why would I want to take this life when he's right here in front of me, so innocent and so vulnerable?
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's saying, why are you doing this?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, I did a life-changing event in an officer's life, an officer-involved shooting where an officer kills someone. And throughout the story, he doesn't really have any family. He has an estranged son, and the only one who really provides support for him, emotional support, is his partner and my main character. And they try to get him to reunite with his son. He doesn't want to, and they try to contact the son, and the son doesn't want to. So the policeman changes in certain ways, but the relationship between him and his son is something that is not resolved. And the life-changing situation actually helps the policeman grow closer to his circle of friends than he was before, but the other situation does not resolve. And that happens in life.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jen, I'm going to let you read the next one.
Okay. Marilyn Robinson from the article of fiction number 198. In the development of every character, there's a kind of emotional entanglement that occurs. The characters that interest me are the ones that seem to pose questions in my own thinking. The minute that you start thinking about someone in the whole circumstance of his life, to the extent that you can, he becomes mysterious immediately. You know, it's funny because even talking about when I was thinking about writing my book, I knew how I wanted it to end. It did not end the way I wanted it to at the time because my character wouldn't allow it. And I know that may sound strange, but her beliefs throughout her life, which I did not know until I started writing the book, but her beliefs were so strong that I could not let it end the way I wanted it to. It had to end the way she wanted it to. And I know that may sound strange, but and it may be even paranormal.
I have to go along a little bit with what he's talking about when it comes to paranormal. Another character in one of my books, they take a locket to have it blessed by. They're in the South. You know, you have all these soothsayers, like especially in Louisiana and in Georgia. You know, and they take this locket to have it blessed by the soothsayer, and they go into this cabin and. She mysteriously just appears. Obviously, I'm making the assumption that it's the screen and you can't see her behind the screen, and that's why you really didn't see her. So the old lady blesses the locket, and there's no thought to it. And then later on in the story, when something happens to the fiancé, which was the main character, Nikki, who got killed off, he goes back to because she had said something that when, you know, look to the sky and she'll always be there or whatever. And then he realized there was meaning to that. Maybe in her passing, that's why she kept saying, look to the sky. And so anyway, he goes back to find out what she meant. And when he's going back, they're destroying the cabin. And he stops the construction people and asks them, what are you doing? This old lady lives there. And they said, what do you mean? No one's lived here in over 30 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, adding a mystery to it, there was never a question as to, well, maybe she was just, you know, she was a squatter. Who knows? You know, I mean, there
Right.
could have been all those scenarios as well.
Yeah.
But it leads you to believe that it was just a spiritual being. It wasn't really a real human being. But you got to add mystery somewhere to whatever you're writing. In James's case, it's real.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mhm.
I have a paranormal element in all of my Maddie James mysteries. She's a forensic facial reconstruction artist. She works in skulls. And when I was doing hands-on, I said to my mentor, "Do you talk to them?" And she said, "Of course." And I thought, what if they talk back? What if the victims can talk to one person, and that's the forensic facial reconstruction artist? Now, a lot of them don't know who killed them. They're mad as heck that they're dead,
Yeah.
and they have different personalities. One of them is a former dancer who dies in a car crash, and when she sees the bright light, she has an out-of-body experience as she's dying. She thinks it's a police helicopter, and she takes off in the other direction. And she's wandering around. She has no idea why she's here, but she's a very compassionate person or spirit, and she means well, but she's not brave. So if something dangerous is about to happen, she'll warn Maddie, but then she gets out of there. And in certain instances, she does save her, but it's always this ambivalent. She's always true to not being brave, but she's also true to looking out for Maddie.
How
So
interesting.
I use it in a different way. One of the in-betweeners, I call them, was a World War II soldier who comes back into the modern world. He's from Georgia. He's a young man. He didn't know how the war ended because he died before World War II ended. And he's going to be, his remains are going to be taken to be buried with his relatives. He's from Georgia, 1940s, and he finds out that his relatives, where he's going, are not pristine white anymore. They're interracial. And how does he react to that? He wants to, be with his family, but he still has a prejudice. And I let that hang with the reader.
Uh-huh.
I don't give an answer. That's something that he'll have to work out.
Well, it sounds like something you would have explored. Were you ever in the South?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I lived there 12 years, and so I understand exactly what you're talking about. I always used to say that Atlanta, which is where I lived, is a world unto itself in the South because it's nothing like the rest of pretty much Georgia. All right, I'm going to go on here. The following is from writingforward.com, and Marianne, I'm going to let you take that.
Where are we?
Right here.
Oh, okay. When it comes to developing worthwhile writing ideas, it's either feast or famine for most of us. Some writers have so many ideas we can't decide which one to pursue. Other writers struggle to find something worth writing about. They don't have enough ideas. When writers are at a loss for ideas, they often self-diagnose with writer's block. But many are merely dismissing their own good ideas, often because they aren't perceived as original enough, or they don't want to put a lot of effort into looking for ideas.
That's interesting.
I find writer's block to be, I find it when I want to transition from one point in the story to another, and I don't know how to do it. So what I do is I just really just start writing just about anything that comes to mind, and eventually what I want to say comes through onto the paper, and then I'll eliminate all of the stuff that got me to that point.
Yeah, I just did that yesterday. I'm working on someone's book, and trying to formulate someone else's idea and figure out what they're trying to convey or say, it's really difficult in a way, especially if they go off on tangents and then you have to reel it back in. And I did exactly what he just said. I thought, just sit down and start writing. You're overthinking it, which is, we create writer's block by overthinking. Just sit down and start writing. So pick up the first quote that you have there that this person said, write, something about it, and then go back and you'll find, and it's exactly what happened. I was able to go forward from there because I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going in a direction I need to be going in. And then you can pick out other things to go along with it. So it's really important. A lot of people don't believe there's such a thing as writer's block.
Who are they?
They're not writers, are they?
I haven't found anybody like that yet.
No, I'm starting on a new book, and the setting is very important to me. And I got inspiration about a week and a half ago when a 2.5-hour ride into the Las Vegas desert turned out to be 9 hours. And I saw things that really popped into my mind and my imagination. And I knew the kind of characters I wanted, but now I know the setting and now I know the crime because I do write
Hmm.
murder mysteries.
Yeah.
So it took 9 hours in the desert to get me going.
James, I want to let you take the next one.
No imagination necessary. First, let me dispel the myth that if you want to be a writer, you must have a vivid imagination. Plenty of writers have found success by being simple observers. Mark Twain is a shining example. His idea for Huckleberry Finn was based on someone he knew from real life. It turns out that the beloved character was practically a replica of Twain's childhood friend, Tom Blankenship.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I mean, I've always thought you had to have a vivid imagination, but I think more than anything, you just have to be an observer.
I think logic pays a little bit to it. You think, how do I get from this point to that point? And imagination and logic together, you can do it, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, I believe in observing. I like to listen to people talk. I like to watch the hand movements, the facial gestures, everything. Sometimes when I'm listening, I can feel myself kind of leaning in the direction of what I'm listening to, and I have to straighten up again. But I'm always listening to how people talk.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you had shared with me once that you actually go to a mall or somewhere and you've actually sat and just listened to what people are
Yeah.
saying, or the airport or whatever. And
Yeah.
I do that now when I'm at the airport, but now it's conscious that I do that because I am interested in the different characters and how they move, how they walk, how they talk. You know, it.
And hopefully they're not talking about illegal things because then you're.
Well, maybe
wonder
you're
what-
hoping they are, because then you can write it into your book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And they'll find you.
I'm going to take the next one. It's called Dreaming Up Things. Creative people from all walks of life, from artists to inventors, have found answers and ideas within the magical world of dreams. One of the most successful living authors of our time, Stephen King, attributes a dream as an inspiration for Misery, or that's how he wrote Misery, a novel that was also made into a film and an off-Broadway play. Unfortunately, many of us don't remember our dreams, and if we do, they're too lazy at best to get up and write it down, I guess. Lucky, there are so many proven techniques to help us learn how to remember our dreams. Try a few of them and see if you can get your next big writing idea while you sound asleep. I do this all the time. As a matter of fact, I don't just do this to dream up a story. Every morning, almost every morning, I am working over something I'm working on in my mind, and I figure it out. Mainly around 3 and 4 in the morning, I'll wake up and I go, oh, okay, that's good. Then I'll lay it back down and I'll try and pick up some more. I do my best to get up and either write it down, talk into my phone, because now we have notes we can put in our phone. But I always do that now. Dreams, I don't know that I could even write a book anymore without those dreams. I don't know if you even call them dreams, but I guess they are dreams.
Intuition, maybe.
Yeah.
I find that when I get to a point where I'm writing in my story and I don't quite know what to do, I'll put it in my mind and then I'll go to sleep for the night, wake up the next morning, and I have an answer.
Right.
And
Well,
I think it's just what you were talking about.
Yes.
I have something a little different. When I was little, my mother always would start out in the morning, "What did you dream about last night?" So she got me very conscious about what I dreamt about. And now I have something very odd happening. I'm writing a novel in my sleep.
Uh-huh.
It's entirely different than what I do when I'm awake, and I pick it up. Like I'll write a few chapters and go through the story, then I'll wake up the next day, don't remember too much about it, but that night I'll pick up the story that I'm writing in my dreams. And I have to wake up and say, did I really write this or am I dreaming this? It's like I'm writing another novel when I'm asleep.
I write a lot of novels. The entire novel comes to me in my dreams sometimes. I could go on and on with stories. Jan, I used to all the time drive her
Yeah.
crazy. I used to call her up and say, I just had this dream, and then I would tell her the story. And the whole thing came
Mute
from
button.
one dream. One dream. The first novel that I ever put out was based on a dream, and that's what I dreamed, that if I put that out, then I will continue with my writing career, or at least a career. So dreams, I think we have to pay attention to, especially if you're a creative person and you're trying to get something out there, whether it be in the arts as a writer or an artist or whatever, I think a lot of people get that inspiration from our sleep.
Yeah, I have a character in my book that I really like the character, but he has this flaw. And to me, it's a flaw. His mother dies and his younger brother die. And he just doesn't seem to be all that upset about it. And I never could figure out why. And I dreamt why. It's because his mother is still with him. She appears to him all the time, along with his brother. So it's like they're still there. So he doesn't miss them because they're there. So that's part of my second book of why and how he can be so nonchalant about the fact that his mom and his brother just died. You know, it's no big deal. So but it was sleep that brought it to me, the answer.
There's
James?
another point that maybe the guy is actually very cold. There's a term for it, and I can't quite remember what it is. That they can kill without feeling at all, and maybe this guy doesn't care if his mother's there or not. But that's not.
No,
your
not my
story.
guy. My guy's a crier.
I see. It's like, I can't.
Marianne?
Okay, I have one person who he's instrumental in his cousin being killed in a very gruesome way. And he doesn't really care because they're both in the mob and now he gets to take over.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I think that, we have to pay attention to what we dream.
Yes.
And oftentimes I get so angry if I don't get up and put it in writing, because by the midday I've forgotten all about it.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm one of those, but I am one of those also that if I see someone right away and I tell you the story, that story is embedded in my mind. It will never go away.
And I think that's why you kept calling me.
Yeah, that's why I do. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I do. I'll call her.
I have a strange thing that happens to me sometimes. Sometimes I'll think, well, how am I going to go on with this? How am I going to go on? I get nothing. But as soon as I sat down at the typewriter, my computer, and it starts coming out of my fingers.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't thought about it at all. It just starts coming out. And okay. So I guess
that happens to me as well. Once you get going, it just starts flowing, and I hate it when I have an interruption. My phone I can control, but if someone comes and knocks on my door, I can't control that.
Right.
So, and then it's really difficult to go back and pick up where you left off. You can try and try and try. And it's just like if you write something, I don't know if anyone's ever had their computer crash, but certainly in the old days I did. And I would lose something, and you can never recreate it the way you originally had it, ever. So I used to hate that. But anyway, that's reality.
I back up everything.
But sometimes you can't back up the last page or whatever.
Right, yeah.
You know, talking about being interrupted, you should speak to my husband. When I'm writing, he'll talk to me and I'll go, uh-huh. And he could say, the house is on fire. And I say, uh-huh.
Uh-huh. I know, I'm that way too.
Just hold your car. Uh-huh.
I know. We'll get there's what is it called? The fire extinguishers under the sink.
I don't even say
You handle it.
It's just, uh-huh.
All right, I'm going to read this last part only because we're running out of time here. Basically, there are no excuses. Writing ideas are everywhere. So much for writer's block and so much for imagination. We writers need only to be influenced and inspired by the world and the people around us. You know what that means. No more excuses. And I remember a young lady who went to us. I used to do a series of lectures years ago. And this young lady came to me and said, I don't know how to start this book. I don't know where to begin. And I said, write the first sentence. If you can write the first sentence, you can create something from that.
Yeah.
And she actually wrote a book that was published from writing that very first sentence. So it's really not that difficult. We make it difficult. We talk ourselves out of things when in reality it's not that difficult at all. What's your feeling on that?
Well, it may not be difficult to start, but you have to know your craft. I mean, not everybody can sit down and write a great sentence and then go on to write a novel. So it takes dedication, it takes experience, it takes self-control, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think it's a lot of work. It's inspiration and perspiration.
I do think that, first of all, what kind of knowledge do you need to become a writer?
You have to know what people like to read, number one.
Okay. Because I thought you were going to say something else. Because a lot of people won't write because they feel like they don't have the educational background to formulate a sentence or a paragraph. And I think that's not true. That's a misnomer. I know someone who I attended a series of lectures at Emory University in Atlanta, and one of the ladies who was a very successful author, Mrs. Tucker, she wrote her first book freehand in a spiral notebook and didn't know beans about formulating a sentence. And she took it to someone, a good friend of hers, Mrs. Holloway, who was also a romance novelist, and she read it, and she thought, there's something to this. Finally, it got into the hands of someone in New York. It not only became a bestseller, it was also, she wrote her second book, and both of them were made into movies for Lifetime. So it wasn't necessarily that she needed the tools as far as structuring something. She just needed to have the idea or the imagination on how to go forward with it. So I don't know that you have to necessarily study to do that, because there are so many people out there who have a degree. I have a friend who has a PhD, 2 masters in a PhD, and cannot write a book. So there's got to be a little bit more to it than just the educational background.
I agree. I'm currently working on a biography of a truly amazing fellow. And when I first met this man, we told a few war stories, as men usually do. And, I've been around a little bit. I've helped defeat the Russians during the Cold War and served 2 combat tours in Vietnam. However, I soon realized that my life adventures paled in comparison to this guy's. But our friendship grew, and months later I asked permission to tell Ron's story. And as much as a storyteller that this man is and his accomplishments, he cannot write.
Yeah.
He has all
But then he comes to you to write it.
He's got me to do it. I think that it's a little more than desire. It's a talent also. Yeah. It's something that we have a desire to do, that make money or not, we do it because we love it.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to do this, but we're running out of time. We're down to the last minute of the show. So again, Marianne, where can you find out about your books?
On Amazon.com and my website, www.marunger.com.
Okay, and James?
On Amazon, James Logsdon, and on my website, prevailingwind.com.
Okay, I would like to thank our guests James Logsdon and Marianne Unger, along with my co-host Janet Corsi. To find links to our show, just go to aspectsofwriting.com. There you'll find links to the video portion as well as the audio, different audio outlets. We are on iHeartRadio, iTunes, AMFM247.com. Syndicates this show. We're on Roku TV and 3 other different stations. So there's 14 different terrestrial stations listed there as well. So just go to aspectsofwriting.com to learn more. Until next week, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Fabulous show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.